Good morning, Ruby Lane. This is Michael Canadas with the Grovian Doll Museum. We are here today to give you a little special program. This last weekend we had a special event called Tea with Queen Victoria's Dolls. And we had, for our guest speaker, we had Mrs. Carol Cameron of the United Kingdom. And she has been a longtime friend of ours. And she gave us a world-class program. But while Carol was here, she noticed that we had quite a few Portrait Jumeau, first series Portrait Jumeau bébés. And a question came up that they all looked so different. And I thought, well, why not? She spent the weekend teaching us so much about Queen Victoria's dolls. I thought I could teach her a little bit of my talent about Jumeaus. So Carol, welcome.
Thank you.
To the Grovian Doll Museum, and
Thank you,
welcome
Michael.
to the Dolly Cam.
Hello, Dolly Cam. Hello, everybody.
And Ruby Lane's Dolly Cam. And hello, Rachel. I know that Rachel's very busy, but she's probably behind her computer right now watching us.
Excellent. Hi, Rachel.
So the question was that we have Portrait Jumeau, first series, and they look so different.
Yeah, they look related, but it's almost like sisters. And what I started to notice was quite a few differences between them, and I was curious as to what had led to those differences, because some of the later bits dolls are much more similar.
Right.
So there's something different about these.
Yes. Okay, so I think that I should tell you too that the dolls that we're going to talk about are really the first bébés by the Jumeau company. When Emile Jumeau took over the company, the Jumeau company was very well situated after the Franco-Prussian War because their factory was outside of the city,
Okay.
so that they came out of that war unscathed. So they had all of the equipment and kilns and all those things to make dolls. And just about that time, the new thing came along, which was the bébé.
And were they first?
No, they were not first. We have to give the dues to that to Jules Nicholas Steiner,
Okay.
because he was making bébés in the 1860s. Now they were a little different, and that main bébé was the bébé gigator. And we have photographic evidence from trade booklets that when they were making French fashion dolls, they had this bébé. And there goes the phone. This is live, and they'll probably leave a message, and we'll call them later. So this is live.
Steiner. He was
Steiner.
talking about Steiner.
Thank you. David's back there. You think he could answer the phone? But that's usually my job. If you get an email, it's from him. If you get the phone call, it's from me. So this is live. But I don't think that they really caught on. And part of marketing in anything is creating a demand. So I feel that the Jumeau company saw, wow, these are dolls that we could make that have a lot less labor involved.
Yeah, because the fashion dolls, I mean, you've got the heads, but the bodies were nearly all, well, a lot of them were leather. And just the sheer sewing involved in the hands and turning the fingers,
That
etc.
is very...
Compared to
right.
the baby bodies.
And that's stuffing, putting wires in them.
Yeah.
It's a lot of labor. So they went into the bébés, and even there's a booklet, it's really propaganda, that Emile Jumeau put out. And they actually talked about this subject, that the bébés were so beautiful, so wonderful, and that's what everyone should buy. And the lady dolls were terrible, and you shouldn't have them, but we'll make them for you if you order them. And I think part of that was the machineries that you could use to make the bodies and etc. So let's look at the first series, Portrait Jumeaus.
Was there a transition period between them? Because I've seen some dolls where the heads almost look like a fashion head, but the bodies are a baby body.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so, and it's actually it's logical, because first you would develop the body, which would be something, you know, they'd have to do that from scratch.
Right.
And then you'd use available heads.
Because there was one on the table.
Well, this one, and I'm also going to have a disclaimer. I'm not totally sure that this head and this type of body should be together.
Right.
But as we're right now having a generational change with collecting, where a lot of things are coming onto the marketplace that haven't been for many years, we're seeing these.
Right.
So that I'm not sure, but in a way, it kind of makes sense that this is, you can see this head as a lady doll, but it also has a childlike quality to it. And since we were talking about the bodies, you know, this is basically a body that we would call this an 8-ball jointed body,
Right.
straight wristed. But in manufacturing it, this would be one piece of cardboard, the back would be another piece of cardboard, it would fit into a machine, it would be pressed out with the form, voila.
Yeah.
Same thing with the hands. So this could save a lot of money in labor and produce them quickly. And also too, we forget that labor was cheap then. Materials were not. So leather, kid skin leather, which was used in many, many things, and the stuffings and all those things had value to them. Where basically a piece of cardboard that's treated with chemicals and glues and compounds and gesso would be much cheaper.
You said these 8-ball joints. Is it fixed wrist or straight wrist? What
Well,
are they called?
Straight wrist, fixed wrist.
Okay, but and then the later ones had the
Jointed. But not necessarily. Some of the early ones,
Right.
because you know in that period, innovation was the body, not the head. If you really think about it, you could patent a body, you could patent articulation. You really can't patent a human head. It's, I mean, they tried it, but it doesn't really.
And I guess
work.
they weren't thinking that 100 and odd years later we'd be sitting here
No.
analysing
No,
bodies
they
sort of
weren't.
things. So they were,
You know,
were making playthings.
yes, they were making playthings, and they were in business to make money.
Okay.
And so they pushed this new concept. So we're gonna look at the first series of portraits, and that is a name that collectors long ago attached to these dolls. It doesn't mean that it's right, but it's how you and I can communicate from London to Pacific Grove.
Right.
We could have a conversation on the phone,
So
and I could
portrait,
say
first series.
first series.
Okay.
So it's going to go by 5. This is size 5. This is size 4.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Okay.
So, but tell me what you see when you're looking at them.
Well, the first thing that struck me was the different colour in the bisque. So this one is very, very pale. This one is a lot sort of more highlighted with the cheeks. And I think it was this one in particular. She looked as if she'd been out in the cold weather and very
Yes.
highlight.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'm wondering, you know, was this, there didn't seem to be any recipe or any fixed way of doing it. It was very much up to the person, the artist doing it. So were they really... Am I right? Was there no
You're totally right. But okay, so then I will work on the manufacturing of the heads at this period.
Right.
Remember, this is early. So in a way, they're experimenting. The workers are learning as they go. But I also should tell you that the kiln that they fired their dolls in was as big as this building.
Oh, wow.
So nothing, yes, and we have photographs of it. We actually have some film
Okay.
inside the Jumeau factory. So it was massive. So they were in business to make money. So if you made a little mistake, and if it didn't explode in the kiln, it was going to be sold.
Right.
So we'll start with the color. So they're all hand done, and to watch them work, which again we have film showing it, they went like this. So if you were Colette and you liked your dolls to have a pinker look, you did pink. And if it was all an individual choice for the artist.
And I remember you said that you used a term pressed.
Pressed, yes. And this is something too that you should all, people that are starting out in bébés should know, that all Jumeaus, with the exception of the Tete Jumeau, are pressed bisque. The Tete Jumeau is poured. That is a completely different technique. It usually makes the bisque thicker. It makes the inner smoother. So I have a girl here that I could let you have the camera have a look, and you have a look. So this is the inside of a pressed bisque head.
It's quite thin.
It's quite thin. Now I want you to, and remember, thin, it was material, so you absolutely could have a feel.
It's rough. It's
Very rough.
rough. Yes.
It's very rough, and sometimes it can be very jagged.
Okay.
So imagine a pie crust, or an apple pie, and you roll it out, and you make a little circle to be the crust. That's what they did. Then they took it and they shoved it into the head.
Right.
And you can sometimes see fingerprints in the head and on the outside of the head. Now, one of the things about pressed bisque is it does create a beautiful, sharp face. Even if a mold could be worn, because molds only have so long before they have to be replaced.
So did they do so many heads, or make so many heads out of the mold and then destroy
I mean,
it?
from my friends that are doll artists, basically the rule is you could get about 50 dolls out of one mold.
Yeah.
Now, if you are really careful and you clean it and you maintain it, you might be able to get more. Now, I'm not sure how many you could get out of pressed bisque, because that's basically an art form that's pretty much lost. So another thing that you will see in, I don't know if we can have it in this one, but you'll see sometimes scratch. I can't see any in hers because I don't have my glasses on. Scratch marks. And when you see scratch marks inside the head, that's where they took a wire and they tested the greenware to make sure that it was the right consistency to go to the next stage.
She's got, is that mold lines?
That's a mold line. So this was made in two separate pieces. One thing I should say too about pressed bisque and early bisque, you're going to see a lot of irregularities. You're going to see mold waves, mold openings. This should not be a negative. This is telling you that this is a natural piece, and that was just part of the manufacturing. You'll find it on the finest French porcelain, the things made in figurines and whatnot. And you'll also see a certain amount of speckling in the early dolls. I don't think they had yet figured out a way to strain it. So again, those are things that you want to see in a doll. But the first series portraits have very nicely shaped ears. Some of the later dolls had very big ears, which are cute, but these were very nicely shaped, delicate little ears.
Okay.
Now, next question, Kara.
Okay, so the eye cuts are completely different. This was the one that really jumped out at me because, I mean, she's like frog-eyed. I mean, she is.
Oh yeah,
she's
she's
extremely large.
She's an
wraparound.
Wraparound. She's an alien from the planet Bebe, which I'd like to take my spaceship and go there. But
compared to that one over there, for example, that's a lot longer almost for the width and the different proportions.
Well, I think that what you're seeing with the eyes is, again, we're at a very early stage in the making of these dolls. And, you have cutters that are cutting outside the lines, just like a coloring book.
So do you think she was an oops sort of thing?
She was an oops, but the thing is, what they did great about it is they cut them evenly. So that's important to me for that type of look. Now, here's the thing about it, this oops moment. If you have an opportunity to buy a first series portrait Bebe with eyes like that, grab it as fast as you can, because this is a very rare doll. It's a very rare look, and actually the size 4 is one that I don't see very often. The 5s come around, not all the time, but they come around. So the eye cutting is just, they haven't yet gotten gotten it figured out, but they're not going to waste a product because it's not fitting into the regiment.
Okay.
They haven't gotten to the regiment yet. Because also too, I think that they probably had to wait and see, what does the public think?
Yeah.
What are the buyers?
What's popular size?
What do they like?
Now, I remember hearing that at those times, some of them, the French companies involved in dolls, some were sort of body makers, some were head makers, some were clothes assemblers, clothes in the shops or whatever. And Jumeau was different though. I heard Jumeau tried to do everything. Was he doing everything at this point?
Well, earlier in the history of the company, which I believe it was founded in 1848, but it was a long weekend, so don't hold me to the date. But by this period, they are now a full, all done in-house.
Right.
Really, one of the only that did the bodies, the heads, costuming.
Everything.
Yes. So they had, which is really smart, because then you can start to control the market. You can control the cost.
Did they sell direct, or did they sell? Could you buy
They
it
did
from them
both.
direct, or
They
both
did both.
from shops as well?
So they had their fancy shop in Paris, which when we were in Paris a couple of years ago, Sammy Oden walked us by it, and we looked in the window, and I was like, this is wrong. There should be Jumeau's in the window. So they had their shop to sell retail, but then they had a terrific worldwide network to sell their dolls wholesale to department stores, toy stores. They were the biggest company at that period.
Okay.
And but one thing I want you to look at too is not the eye cuts. Let's just look at the eyes.
The eyes, yes.
So you see that they're actually all very different.
Yeah.
We don't have one type of eye. And I have a theory, and that is that we know that the English glassmakers supplied eyes to the French manufacturers. We know that because after the French Revolution, a lot of craftsmen went to England, the ones that could escape, and they had a very good glass-making business.
Because they remind me of when I've been to glass-making companies and there's demonstrations on. They're making items, but they're all different. Because it just depends how they glow and the colours that they put in, etc.
So my theory is at this period, they were receiving eyes from England, and you get what you get. So you're going to have this random type of eye, and what mattered is did they fit into the eye sockets. And it's not as easy as anybody who's ever made a doll knows. It's not easy to get doll eyes. Now later on, we do know for a fact that they had a department that made their eyes. So that's when you start getting uniformity, quality control, and it's almost like overnight the whole situation changes. And I'll give you a perfect example. These are not first series. One is an early EJ and one is a second. But if you look at them, they both have identical eyes. Unfortunately, the brown eyes are fairly dark, so it's not going to, the camera's not going to capture. But at this period now, we have
getting more
regimented.
Yeah.
You know, it could be
Standard.
controlled in the house, and probably also was, very cost effective with that issue to help with, also too, because if you need to know what size eyes you have to have for a head, and they're done by millimeters. And that right now, actually, that's an art form that we're losing. A lot of doll makers, they can make beautiful dolls, but they're not eye makers, and we're losing that art form. So anybody out there that blows glass, I just gave you a great business idea.
There's a market.
There's a market, yes.
So, I mean, sticking with the eye, maybe broadening it to the painting, I think I know what you're going to say about this, is that the painting, I mean, some of the dolls have very distinct black lines around the eyes. This one in particular, very, very thick eyeliner almost. This one has hardly got any at all. And then the painting of the eyebrows is different. This one, sorry, I'm moving around some other. This one comes on to the top of the nose. This one is well away from the nose. The lip painting is different too. Some of them have very distinct highlights at the upper and lower lip. This one is very, very distinct.
But I guess you're going to say it's all up to the artist.
It's all up to the artist.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, a lot of the things that you just mentioned, when they would paint it, they'd paint it upside down because it would be easier to paint it upside down.
Right.
And it would blow your mind how fast they painted them.
Right.
Because again, we have film. Someday I'll share it with everybody. I'm a little bit greedy to keep it. It would blow your mind because it's just like this, and they're done. Where we have doll artists that struggle to get every lash and then count.
I did do doll classes.
Oh, did you?
And
Okay.
I would sort of do a doll 1 week and then it'd look awful, so I'd take it all off
Yeah.
and do it start
Okay,
again.
but
Yes.
they did it
They're
so
quick.
fast,
Oh.
and it's all an individual. It was all about the individual painter what they wanted to do.
Okay.
That's the only logical explanation. If you look at the colors of the lips, the cheeks, and all of that, with taking away the undercoat, it's all the same color.
Right.
It's just the amount of saturation of color that makes it look different. You can have different eyebrow color, just slightly, but it's basically the saturation of paint.
Okay.
Now the lines that you were talking about, this one does have an underline.
Yeah.
This one does not. One thing that people forget is when you set a doll's eyes, you use a certain amount of setting wax. And that setting wax distributes once you put the pressure of the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And then after 130 years, it darkens. It might collect dirt and dust.
Yeah, yeah.
And it becomes a very pretty, almost like an inner eye decoration.
Yeah.
And a lot of European collectors do, as Americans, we like to clean things.
Ooh,
Yes, we do.
ooh.
And we like to clean the bisque. And sometimes they clean that away, where
Right.
I think a lot of Europeans love that they like it to stay that way.
Was this eyeshadow unique to this at this
Yes,
time?
it's a mauve eyeshadow, and I think it's one of the things that, and it's random. It's not on all of them.
Right.
So it's a very odd thing. It's something that I look for when I'm looking at a doll. But she has a very lovely bit of mauve shadow. She has quite a bit, and then the littler ones don't really have much. So it's just like I felt like doing this, and but I think it's one of the things that makes dolls really, really beautiful.
Now, one of the other, it was this one actually, the wig on this one, because when I looked at all the others, they had the more of what I was expecting, the flowing mohair, etc. But this one, is it sheepskin? Is it?
Yes.
Okay. And you think that's original?
I think that's original. A lot of our European viewers aren't going to understand what I'm going to say about that doll. But when I look at her, I see very New England sensibilities, like a doll that maybe the parents went on the grand tour, they brought a beautiful Jumeau, they took it home, and they made it a very New England utilitarian wardrobe of clothes.
Right.
And what we're left with is a winter costume, which it psychologically fooled you into thinking that her cheeks look like she was just out in the snow.
Yeah.
But I think that this is the original wig. Now, that being said, no one's done a study on wigs. And if I were for what's original, sometimes we know which ones are original when the dolls come out of a home and it's never been touched. But we could do a study on wigs, and where I would begin is with the material on the cap.
Okay.
That's the thing that's going to be
The base
regimented.
of the cap.
The cap. And we've had hundreds and hundreds of Jumeaus in our career, and usually there will be a corresponding number, so that when they were making a wig and you were working on size 5s, you grab the size 5s and put it on the doll. But collectors have always, and children have always, loved to change the wigs.
Right.
And some wigs, sometimes a family would buy a doll, throw the wig out, and have heirloom hair made for the doll. They would have their daughter's hair cut and they had wig makers. It was a very common thing. So I think it's hard to really say absolutely You can say it's an antique wig, that's not hard to figure out. But whether she was born with it or not, I don't know that you can.
Well, you mentioned clothing, because that was the other one, because when I looked at the clothing on these, I mean, at one end you had, now I'm going to use, I call this frou-frou.
That's frou-frou.
Frou-frou.
Let's name her frou-frou.
With all the, you know, the lace and the big frilly hat, except, and then at the other extreme you've got this, which is almost
Simplistic.
mummy-made sort of
Yeah.
thing, very, very
Oh, yeah.
simple. And did they sell them naked, or were they always dressed?
Yes, they sold bebes naked,
Yeah.
but a naked bebe then would have been in a chemise, which is chemise is basically an undergarment.
Okay.
They wouldn't be like her, but it would be in a chemise. And then later on, they would come with a chemise and a pair of shoes.
Right.
And then you did the rest. But then they also sold full dress dolls.
Right.
And the thing about a full dress doll, I want to get this out to the world. When they were made, a fancy dress doll was twice the price or more. Okay?
Wow.
So the real labor was in the clothes.
Clothing.
So don't expect today to get an all original anything with all the bells and whistles. You're going to have to pay twice the price it should be, because it was then and it is now.
Because I noticed you had these.
Now talk about frou-frou.
Yes. You had these. Now, what would you call these?
But these are trade
business
cards.
Trade cards.
Trade cards.
Okay.
So if you went to a shop and I
These
think
are dated 1878.
yes. So this would have come out of the shop. They would have given you this in the shop, or it would have been put in a doll box as this is propaganda. This is advertisements.
Yeah.
But look at the exuberant costumes.
Yeah.
Frou-frou is almost kind of plain compared to these.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, the amount of material and laces. I mean, for me as a collector, I love these things. To be able to find these pieces, because this is really how these dolls were dressed. No, I mean, this is a little later than what we're talking about today, but it's still the same concept.
Yeah.
I mean, this was the age of the upholsterer. Everything was festooned, tucked, buttoned, swagged, everything you can think of.
But it is, I guess for a collector, it is personal taste. I mean, my personal
Absolutely.
taste.
It's more simple.
It's more simple.
Sure, because you love early dolls. And
Yeah.
it has early. But the thing about it is, this doll could have had a wardrobe of clothes,
Yeah.
which she would have had
Including something frou-frou.
something frou-frou,
Yeah.
her Sunday best. She would have had something frou-frou. She would have had play clothes. She would have had a school uniform. Bebes had wardrobes of clothes. Unfortunately, for the last probably 75 years, collectors, when they've gotten them, they've split them up because they have more dolls to dress.
Yes.
That she would have had a mariner's costume. She would have had all kinds of things.
Okay.
So if you really get a real wardrobe, you'll see that they're not going. By the way, they're not going to have a trunk full of this.
Yes.
This would be not practical, and it would be unbelievably expensive. Even we're doing a little study on royal dolls. Even royal princesses
Yes.
did not have. They had a wardrobe that was logical, functional for their dolls.
Let me switch to the bodies, because that was the of course the bit that's visual is the hands, and I noticed on this size 5 and this size 4 that the fingers are very separated,
Right.
large hands separated.
Yes.
When you get down to the smaller sizes, and I'll let Samantha just there we go. So those are the separate fingers, but in the smaller sizes, so here for example, you've got
We're
it
still separated.
slightly separated.
We're at 3.
You can
So
slightly
that's
say
size
that's
3.
3. This
Yeah.
one is a mitt hand, and then
she's a
this
mitt
little
hand,
one
too.
here is a mitt hand. Now, was that just practical difficulties of trying to get the hands separate? or was it-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And later on, they would be able to do that because they would use various compositions to create the hands, and probably the machinery got better. But at this age, it was just this was an easier thing to
Manufacture in that size.
Now, I also have a theory too, is that Ernestine Jumeau, who was a genius and really also should get the credit for putting this company on the mark, she ran the dressing department and the design department. Well, anybody who dresses dolls knows the biggest nightmare you have are open fingers trying to go into clothes.
Right.
So maybe the bigger ones were easier to deal with because the garment's bigger. And then as they get smaller, look at the
Oh, yes.
cuff there.
Yeah.
I mean,
If
that
that was
is.
splayed, you wouldn't get through that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
it's.
good point.
I mean, this is just a theory. There's
Yeah.
nothing. I have no facts to base on it. But you know what? As you're a mathematician, the numbers kind of support. The numbers don't lie, and
What about markings? Because they're all marked in the back of the head.
yes, and the mark is very low on the neck.
Right.
So you have to kind of get the head forward, and you will see that, use your measurements and the number, and it's actually pretty easy to find. Now, the first series grew. There are more dolls, and as they get smaller, they're /O. I don't actually have any.
Right.
So if I had them, and I do need to, I guess I need to get some, that I could do another study of that as they,
Smaller ones.
but I have to tell you, I know that the world right now wants small everything, but to have the spectacular look in this, you gotta go big.
Big.
I mean, it's something that people that collect German character dolls know, that the fabulous faces are the bigger ones.
Yeah, because
And
not
I-
all molds, I know, transfer into the smaller size.
Exactly.
Some do. And
Some
don't.
do. And I think one thing I love is when you have a little doll, if you photograph it and you can't tell if it's
Yeah,
30
big or
inches or 12. I mean, that's the ideal thing.
Now, were the bodies marked at this point?
Yes,
They were.
they would be marked Jumeau, Bébé Jumeau Medaille d'Or.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean
Oh,
that,
right, like
right,
this.
yeah,
Like
doesn't
card.
mean that they
Okay.
ever won an award. The minute that Jumeau started winning awards, they used that as we're gold medal winning
Gold
dolls.
medals. Now, this is one of the Paris exhibitions,
Yes,
is that right?
yeah.
Okay.
And world fairs, and the Jumeau company was very, they understood that was an important part.
The exhibit in the States as well?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes, in Philadelphia and all over.
Okay.
So that they sprinkled their dolls. A Jumeau in its time was one of the most famous dolls because he was, Emile Jumeau was the P.T. Barnum of
Right.
doll promotion. I mean, I don't know if he probably ever went to the factory, but he promoted it. And which, by promoting it, he promoted an amazing industry that is really, it's too bad France doesn't recognize the glory that they had for a good 60 years of toy manufacturing.
Now, you and I have talked about this dolls a bit and whether damage to the head, impacts, etc. But these very early dolls, if you find a beautiful one with some sort of firing crack or something, so how does damage play into this?
Well, I think that, of course, I collect art, okay? I collect art. I collect paintings, I collect porcelain, I collect artistic furniture, decorative arts. Dolls, to me, are art. So we were just, had this behind-the-scenes tour of a major American museum institution. And we went into the laboratories where they're repairing things. It's art. Do you know what? If you got your black light out on Mona Lisa, you would just be horrified that she's had repairs. Or Venus de Milo has been put back together many, many times. These were children's toys that were played with. So to me, if a doll is beautiful or it's whatever it's supposed to be, if it's a character or outrageous, if it's giving me all that, I'm forgiving. Now, what I'm not forgiving of is if you feel you got taken. So, we have to be informed buyers, but there's not enough, Carol, there's really not enough of this material, even though it seems like it, there's not enough of this material to go around. And we think that every year we get more collectors, which we do, by the way, more collectors, and we actually have less material because things happen. So it's my personal thing. I remember one time I was working with a very important client on a very rare doll, and said, "Oh, I don't want that. It's got a little boo-boo." And I said, "Well, do you care what it resells for when you're gone?" She said, "No." I said, "Do you care what your heirs get for it?" She said, "No, of course I don't." I said, "Well, what does it matter then?" She said, you're right. And I said, if you're lucky enough to get one perfect, you can upgrade it.
I've seen people
I
with
found-
what looks like Star Wars, what do you call it, lightsabers, and they, like this one, they take the wig off.
And I think that's perfectly fine.
Because then you know what you're buying.
Yeah, you know what you're buying, so if it has something on it that you, but there are some collectors that can't accept the natural things. When I began, the people that made the rules of condition were Madame Alexander dealers. So they made the rules in that time, and everything had to have pink tissue paper in the original box, and they shouldn't have been the ones making the rules for decorative arts, because nobody that collects, say, a Renoir is going to say, I don't want it because I can see that there's a little tear in the corner. They're going to have it restored and hang it wherever. I mean, they're just not going to. So I approach this as art. So I also know that just like art, you can upgrade your art. So the really rarest things, some of the rare things that we have that have had a little boo-boo, in my field, they're the one-offs, because they're still here, they're still with us, and there's
the
possible
position. And then we've talked about the colouring, the eye cuts, the different artistry, the different types of bodies, the clothing. Yes, this one.
Okay, but then sometimes,
This is the different. Yeah, this is.
So sometimes, remember, they're in business to make money, and it was very competitive. So I believe in 1883 or 82, not sure, the Brew Company, which is one of my favorite companies, came out with the Bébé Model. So, this was a very competitive time. So the Jumeau company came up with their version of the wooden-bodied, let's call it the Jumeau model.
And what size of head is that?
So what's very interesting is this is a size 1.
Right.
But because it's on the wooden body, it's a little bit bigger.
Right, so that's the same.
Same size as she is.
Right.
So, but she's a little bit bigger.
Yes.
Now, you could say that, oh, Michael Canas doesn't know what he's talking about, it blah, blah, blah. You could go on Ruby Lane right now, and there's a dealer that has this very same doll, this height, this everything. The odds of that are slim to none.
Yeah.
So there's some things like this, just like the Baby Model. I don't think that this was a financial success, because again, we've got a lot of material, and also we have to think about right now in all of our world in England and America, we're dealing with things like tariffs, right? So this doll, the tariff would be based to export it on its weight.
Yeah,
so this is a
very heavy doll compared. I wonder what children would have thought of that.
Right.
Maybe,
but
it just
also
didn't take.
to the buyers, you're making this now that we can't afford to resell it because the tariffs are too high, the export duty. If this went out of the area that it was made, even in those days in France, there was tariffs within the area.
Right.
So that's why I think
It's a wonderful body.
It's a wonderful body, and it's a very rare doll. But you can see we're starting to get a little more uniformed look with this one.
So you mentioned this was the first series. Just, I guess, to complete, what were the ones that came next? These were.
Well, then it would be
series?
the second series portrait, which this is a really good example. And again, now we're at a very regular decoration of the face, the body, but talking about Ernestine Jumeau clothes, these are her fabulous clothes.
Are they marked at all? Do they have a label?
Well, they can be. They can have an armband, which she does
Okay.
not have, which was probably removed, and they can also be. There can also be a label at this part of the dress. So if you flip that over, it would be across here. We do have an EJ Jumeau with a label on it.
Okay.
But here's the real. When the doll sits, she's always
Okay, right.
advertising.
Yeah, the Jumeau.
Emile Jumeau. Medal d'Or, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know,
That was replaced, I think. That's got all the marks on it.
Yeah, that's got it.
That's
And, you know, it's easy to lose your soul these days.
More ways than one.
Yes. But this shows you, so now we're getting into a more regimented manufacturing. And then really by the time you get to, say, this is a little size 1 EJ that has all the bells.
She looks all original too.
Totally original.
Yes.
All the bells and whistles.
Wonderful.
And actually,
that colour is wonderful.
yes, you know, it was probably just so bright when it was new, but you're starting to, this is probably a very large doll, so that it's been modified to fit these little dolls. But the work in this costume is amazing. And, you know, she's one of my favorite dolls, this little one.
And we also, when we were going round looking, we touched on these. The sort of, is it long face?
It's a long face, a trees.
Yeah.
And
where did they fit into the?
Well, I think
jigsaw?
that they were very early, but I think that this was one of their most, until the Jumeau, this was one of their most successful models. There's a lot of folklore around the doll. I feel it's a portrait doll also, because this is one of the few antique dolls that we know who sculpted the head, and that was Carrier Blues. And anyone who's been to Paris and had the honor of going to the Paris Opera Palais Garnier, all of the sculpture outside of it and inside of the opera house was sculpted by this man.
Wow.
And so he did this, a bust, and I would imagine that there was some kind of deal made to make a mold after the bust. So you are going to see a lot of different painting techniques in a long face. You can call it a long face, you can call it a trees, you can call it whatever we kind of all know what that is. And this is a size 9, and they go up to size 9 is the smallest.
That's the smallest.
That
Okay.
they made. And I do believe that this size was one of the most popular to sell because a child could really handle that kind of doll. And then
Because
they
I've seen
went
some that are absolutely huge,
enormous.
Like almost, is it 3 feet or something?
Yeah.
36 inches?
Yeah, so they go up
34,
to, I
36?
think, size 16, so that's like
Okay.
36 inches.
Wow.
I'm not sure, but I know that they come big.
Yeah.
And
But some of the same comments apply to these two as over here, because her colouring
totally
is very different.
eyebrows.
Eyebrows, yeah, away from the nose, that goes on the lips, yeah. Yeah.
There are two groups of these.
Oh,
In my, I've been lucky to have examined at one time whole groups of them with
Okay.
big collections that have quite a few. And the numbering system, these are both marked 9 and I think she's 12, 9 and 12 period.
Okay.
That's one group. There's another group with just the number, no period.
And which is earlier?
I believe that these are earlier.
So the
She
ones
may, in my opinion, they're both early, but she may be later in the early set.
Okay.
Because, we've got well, also too, she's a brown-eyed girl.
Yeah.
So we've got brown eyes, darker brows. She's actually, the funny thing is, it's very tricky. She's paler,
Yes.
but this one, to me, looks paler. But if you really look at it, it's, you have to, they both have mauve shadow, hers is
Yes.
more intense.
Yeah.
But I think we should look at these ears, because they have, one thing long faces are known for are their big fat wide ears.
oh wow, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, you can see the seam line where it's
Oh,
gone.
yeah.
Her hair feels different. Her hair feels, is it human hair, do you think?
That is human hair, and I believe, in my opinion, that is a heirloom wig. So that is a
Right.
wig that's of the time that was probably the child's hair.
Hair, absolutely
And
gorgeous.
this is called a rag curl. And the way you get the rag curl is you have to take a strip of fabric and wrap it and wrap it and wrap it.
Okay.
So wig making was a common thing to have then. So you could take a bunch of hair to the wig maker and they could make the wig.
Well, I know from wax dolls that often happened. That
Yes.
children's hair was taken and then it was inserted
Insert.
hair by hair
Yes.
or clump by clump
Yeah.
into the doll.
Sure.
Yes. To personalise it.
To personalize it.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of my nieces has a doll. They probably don't even know this. They have a doll with my mother's hair on it. A bis doll.
Wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. And it's about the same color and about the same length as that.
What have I missed? What have I missed?
I think you've worked me pretty hard. So, I mean, we didn't even have a chance to answer any questions from the audience, but we can go in afterwards and answer that.
Okay.
So, Carol, you're here now. I mean, Carol is a fantastic volunteer. Not only does she give a wonderful presentation, she also really helped out. So she's a worker, which leads me to our international viewers. Carol is the United Federation of Doll Clubs Region 16 Regional Director.
Yes.
Which Region 16 is the world.
Outside the US.
Outside the US.
Yes.
So we're going to post, if they're interested in joining our group, that they can contact you.
Absolutely. I've given Rachel my UFDC email, so if there's anyone out there wanting to be interested in finding out more about UFDC, then just drop me a line.
Yes, and you can also connect them up to what's going on in London soon.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be in London together again, because we can't be away that long. So you're a member of the Doll Club of Great Britain.
So the Doll Club of Great Britain, so let me step back. The whole weekend is called the 200 Years of Childhood. And
this is in London.
This is in London. London, England. And it's been organised by Hilary Pawley and Daniel Agnew. And this is the third year they have organised such an event. And the intention is to try and sort of bring some razzmatazz, buzz, kickstart the doll, toy, trade and doll's house. It's a very broad collector's scene.
It's a huge
it's huge endeavour. Yeah. So this year we're going to have events on the Saturday and the Sunday, the 17th and 18th of November. And on the 17th in the afternoon, the Doll Club of Great Britain, which I'm a member of, we're going to have an event where we're going to have 4 seminars by Sammy Oden, Margaret Kincaid, Olivia Bristol and Anne Coleman. And we're going to have 2 wonderful exhibitions. One is on World War I, toys and dolls and teddies, and that's to commemorate 100 years of the end of World War I, 1918 to 2018. We're also going to have an exhibit of the Doll Club of Great Britain history, because we as a club have just celebrated our 65th anniversary. And to top it all, we're going to have a lovely English cream tea with scones and jam and cream and cake and things. So that's in the afternoon. And then in the evening, Hilary and Dan have organised a banquet. And this is, in fact, where David and Michael and Rachel are going to be doing a show for us. And that's looking forward to that. And then on the Sunday is the doll show in Kensington Town Hall. And it's not just dolls, it's toys, it's trains, it's teddy bears, it's dollhouses, everything.
Yes.
Everything is pre-1950, so 200 years of childhood, roughly 1750 to 1950. And there's going to be some seminars there too. So Jenna Pang is going to be talking about teddy bears. Rachel Hoffman is going to be talking about the dolls actually here from the Grovian Museum.
She's going to talk about the Grovian Museum.
And then Rebecca Hoffman and Caroline Schwartz are going to talk about the FAO Schwartz Company. So there's all sorts of things on at the weekend. If you can join us, that would be wonderful. Google 200 Years of Childhood and you'll find all sorts of tickets for various things. Put a link in. But if you can't join, then Rachel's going to be there the whole weekend, and you can join virtually and enjoy what's going on. So
I think that this is going to be the gala end to a year of dolling.
Yeah,
I really do. So if you can come, please do. But if you can't come, you can sit in your bathrobe at home and watch it, because it is also Doll Week.
Yes.
So last year Doll Week was here.
This year it's
in London. So that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And I think there are other videos out that we've done that.
Thank you, Ruby Lane.
Yes, and thank you, Ruby Lane, for that.
Yeah.
But Carol, unfortunately, we've got to take you to the airport. So we've got to say goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hope you enjoyed that. Thank you.